All right, and we're live. Hey, everybody. We had to go to a third party app to make this work. I want my friend LuAnn to be here on my personal profile and share some cool stuff with you, and I want you to get to know her. So we just tried twice to go live from the page, and it didn't work, even though both of us had used Facebook Live and screen sharing before. I did not feel it was necessary to test it, and there you go. It didn't work today. So we went to Plan C, which is the Be Live app, which is great. It works. So LuAnn's here. Without much further ado, this is the No Fear Video Live show. And LuAnn, take it away. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, hi, Doreen. Thank you so much for having me. And before I introduce myself, I just have a question for you. I'm not seeing it live on your Facebook page. Is it actually happening?
Oh, you know? Let's see.
Oh, wait, you know what?
Let me go see. It says live.
No, it is. It's there. Okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So thank you. All right. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm not a video expert, as you can see. I am the host of a podcast. It's called A Well-Designed Business. I'm also the co-owner with my husband and my cousin of a brick and mortar business called Window Works, located in Livingston, New Jersey. And I just said to Doreen, I don't have one bit of fear of being on camera, but it's making all of this tech stuff work that makes me crazy.
But here's the cool thing. Even though the tech stuff wasn't working today for either of us really well, we're not letting it rattle us, right? Because we're ready to talk video and ready to talk podcasting. So let me start right in. I see all this equipment. You obviously, I know you do podcasting because I was on your podcast. So talk a little bit about how you got into podcasting. And now that, and how long you've been doing it, and now that video is really being pushed out a lot by a lot of people, how is that affecting podcasting at all? Or are you maybe dual? Are you maybe?
Well, it's a funny because there are, first of all, I got into podcasting because I was a guest on a podcast 2 summers ago in 2015. And I had responded to Help a Reporter Out inquiry about wanting an entrepreneur that had a business that had over, I think, $1 million in sales or something or whatever. And I fit all the criteria. And I was like, cool. And I was an podcast listener since like 2005. So this was 2015. And I was like, that would be fun. Let me see what that's like. And honestly, Doreen, after the interview, I hung up and I was like, oh, sweet Jesus, I have to do this. I was like hooked. And yeah, so I researched it for quite a few months and came up with a concept that aligned with my brick and mortar business, and finally launched a podcast in February 2016. So it's been up for 1.5 years. We just hit 200 episodes this past week, and it's been a blast. And so now to answer the question about how video is affecting it, it's interesting because experts like yourself keep telling us how video is absolutely critical. And I have not done video yet with my podcast. I actually did one recording with the video and the split screen of a guest. I've done podcasts with video as a guest on the show. That's fine. But when I did one recording where I was interviewing the guest, I found that one of the things, my superpowers, I really feel is that I really am a great listener, and I feel like I ask really good questions. And of course, my listeners, my podcast listeners tell me this and reinforce this for me. And so what I found was that when I was on a split screen and watching, my guest's face and, looking at myself with a cowlick sticking out and everything else, I wasn't as intentional a listener. And so I felt like I would give up some quality and have the video. And so for me, I'm making a decision not to. However, I will put a spoiler out there that I am going to be starting a new series. We're experimenting it next week, and it will be with 2 recurring guests that are both amazing personalities and designers and lots of fun. But I'm not, I'm going for it because it's not going to be my typical get to the bones interview. It's more like a talk show. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be talking design, talking business. But, but my friend Rachel, I don't know if she came back in. She was in our first one. We were trying Facebook Live a few moments ago. Rachel Moriarty is a designer in Southern California, and she started a podcast with Dixie Willard. They were both there with us. I don't know if they're there now, but they started a podcast and they video the whole podcast, and they're killing it. So that's their superpower. So their podcast is called Design Plus Style, Design and Style, by the way. So if anybody's listening and interested, they have a great podcast too.
Sure. And make sure that afterwards you leave a link to her podcast and, of course, your own podcast below. So that comes to an interesting question, because I think there are some people who are streaming to multiple streams. And so you're first and foremost a podcaster, and you've already said, adding video to that distracts you from doing the podcast the way you want it. Now there are people who are doing video shows who are now repurposing that content and are catching the audio from the video show and repurposing that as a podcast. So it's the other way around. And I wonder if I ever get to talk to somebody who does that, if they say that that's no issue. If you go live and you really concentrate on the video part, can you extract enough good audio to make that into a good enough podcast? And I love being on your podcast. I've been on probably 25 to 30 podcasts over the last few years. And I have to say, you were very well prepared with your questions, and I loved your enthusiasm, and I loved your follow-up questions. So I could tell that you had done a lot. I didn't know you had done 200, but I could tell you had done a lot. So I like that. And I want to say to you, good job for you. And I would also then understand that quality, quality control for your podcast is more important than doing video. So in your business, though, I'm going to go back, is interior design. Yeah. It's all visual, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's true. Having you on the show last week really, there have been many guests over the last several months that have continued to tell us that video is the next thing. Jessica Brace Carter was on the program, and her show is not live yet, but she is a big advocate for helping businesses go Facebook Live and do live video, and a few others. And it's funny because I said to you on our show today, that's live today on our feed, I haven't resisted it because I'm uncomfortable. I've resisted it because of the project of it. And in your conversation on my podcast, it's funny, it seems like an obvious tip, but your tip of, sitting there for X amount of hours and doing one tip, change your shirt, put on a different pair of earrings, do the second tip, and I understand that we can't make that go live, but for my brick and mortar business, Window Works, which is window treatments and awnings, and for all the designers that I speak to, which as you said, their businesses are visual. I just said to myself, she's right. Like, I should just go over to Window Works on a Saturday morning with 6 shirts. And because I have literally been thinking, I got to do a tip a week for Window Works. Forget the podcast. I'm not worried so much with that, but I should do a tip a week every week for Window Works. And then I'm like, Tuesday I'll do it. And the next thing Tuesday, it's a bad hair day, or I got busy and I didn't get the lights set up. And I just forget it. It's been a year of kicking it to the curb. And your advice on this particular episode, I just went, that's doable. Like, that's so doable. And so I was so happy, because I say all the time on our show, you can hear the same thing over and over again, but there's going to be one person that says it to you and it clicks. And you are the person that said it to me and it clicked. And I was like, I have to do this.
That's awesome. Well, that's the closet behind me. I've got like a bunch of shirts, and most of them are orange. I got some new colors in because I still have my orange glasses. But yeah, I have a bunch of earrings sitting on my desk, and I have those shirts. I'll just change out the shirt. And I'll give tip number 1, and then, change the shirt, tip number 2. And I think when you can batch content creation, whether that's visual content or video content, it makes it easier, and if you were to hire somebody, if you had to hire a videographer, again, you'd also want to get it all set up, because he's not going to come and do one video and then come back next week and do another video. Right. So time is money. But that to me makes a lot of sense. I've done that before. It works. I tell people all the time. So I love that. So hopefully you can implement that soon and get a bunch done. And I mean, can you imagine if you once a month on a Saturday, you spend an hour and they're done, and there's your content for the whole month for video. So that would be amazing.
That tip. It was just so mind blowing. I was like, that's genius. You know what I mean? And the other tip that you shared, I thought was truly, really so insightful as well, because I keep making a joke how I'm not uncomfortable in front of video, but I am very fully aware from my interactions with interior designers that a lot of them are uncomfortable in front of video. And I thought that your tip about you have your clients videotape themselves, watch it, delete it, videotape 30 times in a row. Just sit down, do it. You say to videotape your script, watch it, delete it, videotape it, watch it, delete it. And I know for myself, to me, it made me think about the podcast. After 200 episodes, I have no idea what's the first thing that's going to come out of my mouth, but I don't worry about it anymore. You know what I mean? It's like the first 10 times, what's the first sentence I'm going to say? And now it's like, well, just hit record. Let's go. And sometimes the first sentence is good, and sometimes it's not good, and sometimes I stumble, and sometimes I don't. But your point I related to, because I no longer worry about it. And that was your point, to help someone be comfortable with video, to just completely do it over and over again until the jitters are gone. And
you get over yourself. You get over yourself.
Exactly right. You just realize not be perfect every time, and it gets to a point where like, it's okay.
Exactly. So that's awesome. So in your business, how are your competitors using video? This is something when I work with somebody, so especially if I have an onboarding of a new client, one of the things we do is look at what competitors are doing. So within social media, a lot of social media marketers like myself are using Facebook Live to, I guess, show off their expertise, to maybe give tips, educate people on video marketing. They do shows. They talk about the latest features and the newest updates and the newest platforms that are out there. And, everybody kind of tries to be the first one to talk about something new that's going on within our industry. And it doesn't necessarily have to be visual, but just right now, everybody's using Facebook Live because Facebook Live has a really big reach, better than a recorded video, or better than a blog post, even when you put, when you're talking about Facebook. So people using Facebook Live specifically to reach as many people as quickly as they can, an easy way. Now, within your industry, are there people that are using Facebook or Facebook Live or videos in a very specific way? Have you seen any success stories? Have you looked at what people are doing or using?
Well, I would say I'm really straddling 1.5 industries. So first of all, I have the podcast industry and then the design industry. And I say I should say 2.5, the podcast industry and the design industry, because I feel like the window treatments is a subcategory of the interior design industry. So
I would agree.
So when I answer the question related to the design industry, and I think about my colleagues who are interior designers that I've had the fortune of meeting through the podcast in the last 1.5 years, a lot of them are really killing it in Facebook Live. Especially, I just mentioned Rachel Moriarty from Rachel Moriarty Interiors, and also Lenora DeMars of 910 Design. These are two designers, and Sandra Funk of House of Funk. These are three designers that come to my mind. There's others that are really consistently going out there. Claire Jefford is another one. I mean, I'm going to think of them for minutes as we go along. A lot of these designers are very, very adept at it, and you can see the growth in it. Rachel, for example, started a Facebook Live challenge with herself that she would do Facebook Live every day for 30 days. And in the 30 days, I don't remember the exact stat, but she said something like in 30 days, she earned 4 new consultations in 30 days. And so she was just like, oh, I'm going to just keep going. And August 5th is her 1-year anniversary of going live every day. And her whole business will be her 1-year anniversary. Her whole business has just blown up, and the growth in her, and to see the comfort level change through the year has been incredible. So a lot of the designers are doing a really good job. And then the designers are also doing a really good job. A lot of my guests are doing a really good job on production quality video on their websites. So we have Pulp Design Studio out of Dallas and Seattle, and the videos on their website are insanely gorgeous. You feel like you know these two women, Carolina and Beth, before you ever pick up the phone and talk with them. Marie Flanagan also is doing a bang-up job on video. So in the design industry, they're killing it. Window treatment industry, honestly, I've been so busy, you're making me realize I haven't gone to look. So I really have to go and see who's doing it in the window treatment. Like my direct competitors, the designers are not my competitors. You know, they're
right.
they're my friends, they're my people, they're my clients. You know, they're not competitors. You know, so it's interesting. But you know, what I did was funny. We mentioned the podcast and video. I have a widget. I don't know the technical stuff, but Hani Mora is a really brilliant man who creates widgets and things for all the things website. And
sure.
This widget, I don't know what it is, what it's called, but all I had to do was connect it to my website, and it automatically, when my podcast load to Libsyn, it automatically pushes the podcast to our YouTube page. Like I don't even have to do anything.
That's cool.
Yes. So all of the podcasts are on YouTube. And then what I do is I just go in when the show is live, and I'll change the thumbnail. Like later today, I'll change the thumbnail to your headshot as opposed to the podcast logo. And then I go in and I put the keywords in and stuff like that. So then what I'm doing with video is, of course, all the podcasts are there. But then when you and I were doing a video like this, or if I did a video 2 weeks ago at the Kravitz showroom in New York City, we did a complete tour and interviewed the principals of Kravitz Inc. You know, then I go and grab that video off of Facebook and I load it onto our YouTube page. So those are some of the things that we're doing to repurpose the content. And so I'm utilizing video for the podcast.
Right. So my next question is, so for the window treatment, that's your brick and mortar store, right?
Yeah.
Is that more geared towards local clients?
Yes and no.
Yes.
So yes, definitely. Yes, in the sense that we're going to do 99.9% of our business in a 50 to 100 mile radius of New York City. But interestingly, what's happened with the world and the internet and everything and things like this now, it's not uncommon because I am located right 10 miles west of New York City. So a huge design hub, right, in this area. The Hamptons are here. Connecticut is here. So it is not at all unusual for an interior designer in San Francisco or Los Angeles or Chicago to have a client that has a second apartment in Manhattan. And so because of house.com and because of the internet and, you know, our advertising and becoming known throughout because of the podcast, I'm getting a lot of designers that are calling up and saying, you know, can you be my boots on the ground for this project in Manhattan? So yes, we're confined to the local area, but we get leads and we do business with people all over the country. because they're
so I would think for that, and I'm assuming you have a Facebook page for that brick and mortar location that's doing Facebook Live specific to the local audience. And even though you have designers from other places come and watch, but talk about local events and things that are happening and trends. And, of course, now in the summer with people coming to the Hamptons and maybe wanting to update, or maybe, maybe they're there and they're enjoying, but saying, well, next year I want something new. Doing Facebook Lives and talking about that might really attract people. And I just will tell you that I've had a lot of success with a lot of local clients using Facebook Live, just telling them about something that's happening at an event within their store or their restaurant or, their golf course or whatever it is that they own. Just saying, hey, we're here. This is what's going on. We'd love for you to come and connect and share, and, just going live for a couple of minutes in the morning before an event or before, serving a special lunch has had huge impact on foot traffic. So I would say, if you haven't tried that on the page, that certainly could be something to try out for the local people as well.
Yes, you, like I said a few moments ago, you really did open my eyes, because I have been utilizing the Facebook Live for the podcast. So when we have an event that's related to the podcast, I'm all over Facebook Live. We're at Cravat Inc. We're going to Facebook Live. We did a sponsored event with My Doma Studio in our showroom, and we had, a dozen interior designers there, all with a workshop. Sarah Daniele, the CEO from My Doma Studio, came in from Canada and ran a workshop, and we Facebook Lived it. Nicole.
Good.
Yeah, Nicole Heimer is a branding expert, and she did a presentation. She's the owner of Curio Electro. She did a branding presentation to 20 interior designers in our showroom, and I Facebook Live the whole workshop. But I have been ignoring my primary business with Facebook Live.
Well, and I can tell you that sometimes the ignoring is part of focusing on the place where you think you're going to get the best return, short-term, return. I think a challenge, like you told me your friend was doing, where she went live every day for a year, it can really explode your business. But, as a business owner, myself as a mom, I have a family too. And sometimes there are these, especially right now in the middle of the summer, and this, even though people say it shouldn't affect your business, for me, it does. I have my 4 kids home. Even my college kid is home. I want to spend time with them. Yeah. I want to go out and swim with my daughter. I want to do some of these things and still have a life and have a business and build my business. And, those sound like excuses, but sometimes it's just not the right time to start a project if you can't dedicate all of your time to it. So for your brick and mortar store, it might be great to get a plan started. And when school starts back up, when people are back to reality and real life and summer is over, maybe right after Labor Day would be a great time to kick that off. So, timing is important in when you do something, and doing something consistent. The worst thing you can do is get started and get all enthusiastic and then stop. And so, and I've been guilty of that, that happens, life happens, things get busy. So those who continue and are very consistent, I applaud. I mean, obviously you've had a podcast and 200 episodes. That's huge. That's a huge feat. So yeah, continuing something like that throughout, even as your business, wanes and waxes and grows and shrinks. And, sometimes timing is important of when you do what. And so when you can go live every week, if you can find that sweet spot where every single week you can make it work, that's pretty awesome. And I've been on Facebook Lives at 9 o'clock at night. I've been on them at 6 a.m. I've been on them at noon. And I can tell you, it's never the best time. I haven't found the perfect time yet because my life is so crazy. So, when I went on at 9 o'clock at night, I had spent the whole day in my running outfit and no makeup. And here it was 8:30 at night, and I'm going to brush my hair and put on makeup at 8:30 at night, which is so uncommon for me. And that's silly, but that would inhibit me from doing a podcast at night myself or Facebook Live. So, you've got to, strategize on all of those pieces, and it all comes together. And then once you have a plan, follow through with it, obviously. I want to kind of wrap it up with something fun. I have asked my guests here before, if you wanted to challenge me to do something. It is called the No Fear Video live show. I sang last time, which I'm not saying I'm going to sing again. But if there's anything, either we can do something together, or, you want me to do, I did get dressed. So, if you want me to do a dance, I could. And if you want to skip it, that's fine too. But I want to show people that even when you're afraid, or even when you're hesitant, or even when you say, never me, it can be you. You've got to practice getting on video. You've got to practice. You got to grow. If you look at the first videos I made 6 years ago and you look at the ones I make now, there's a huge difference. If you look at a child writing in first grade and then 6 years later writing an essay in sixth grade, you see the growth. It's the same with video. So you've got to get started somewhere and publish that first video, and then grow, learn, improve, and have fun with it. So that's really what this is all about. And I am sure you have excellent tips on your podcast, as well as about interior design, but also about podcasting. What is it? Give me, before we sign off, and if you want to have me do a challenge, I will. Before we sign off, what is the biggest lesson that you learned from, if you think back, the first podcast you did and the ones you just did this week? What has the growth been like?
Oh, the growth has been, it's just like you said, the first video you do, and then the one, 200 later, it's a completely different story. The growth has been, I know the moment that I understood what the key to this podcasting thing was. In the beginning, when you're doing it, and I'm going to share this because I think it probably relates to doing live video or any kind of video as well. In the beginning, when I was podcasting, I was asking questions, responding, and sharing myself, but a feeling like, don't talk about yourself so much. Don't say too much. I was trying to find the fine line between, like, the podcaster, that the guest says something amazing and the podcaster goes, that's great. Like shoot me when that happens, right? It's like, that's great, and ask this and say that. But I was really afraid of the line between, all the way over here, which is not acceptable. Oh, good answer. That's great. To, word vomit all the way over here and talking too much, right? And I also was afraid of, like, I say crazy things. I say, don't be crazy pants. I say, this isn't a hobby. If I want a hobby, I'll go to yoga. Like, I that's how I am, and that's how I talk. And I was really more trying to be a little buttoned up, and I remember the moment that I started to make the turn into really being who I was. Vanessa De Leon was a guest on my show, and she's a very well-known interior designer here in the New York area and probably across the country at this point. But she's young. She's probably in her early 30s. And so to me, she feels like a kid, okay? But she is so accomplished, and she just impressed the heck out of me with how intentional she was from the beginning, from 20 years old, of laying out her business. And I was just in awe of her as a businesswoman, in addition to her interior design skill. And so I'm trying to craft my introduction to her, because I always do the introduction separately and record it after the thing. And I don't know, I don't remember what episode she was, maybe 20, 25, I have no idea. But my Nana used to always say, I love that kid. And she'd say it like that. I love that kid. And so as I'm doing this introduction, I write my introduction, right? And then I read it, but I read it and it doesn't sound like I'm reading it, because then I change it to talking words as opposed to writing words, right? Right. So I'm kind of going through it. And when I get to this one part that I keep saying about her, I keep saying, and I just love that kid. And I'm like, LuAnn, you can't say this. Like, this is weird. You're like people. So I literally 4 times, I naturally at this point in the introduction on the recording go, I just love that kid. And I said, finally, I called my one daughter who's 28 years old, and she's a very good judge of me, because she knows exactly when I'm being entirely too ridiculous. or whatever. And I called her up and I read the thing to her and I said, do I say I love that kid there? And she goes, it's so you, Mom, just say it. And I'm like, right, but being so me, is that just a little too weird? She's like, no. And that was the boom right there. And then I just started to let the little parts of my crazy personality pop out. And that's the thing. So when your clients and when all of the people watch what you do, when they hear you say, be yourself, keep practicing, the more you do it, every time you do it, what you do one day and what you do 2 weeks later and 6 months later, you're going to get better at it because you find your space, you find your voice. And like you say, you get over yourself. You forget it.
Yeah. Authenticity is, you can't really fake it in video, even more so than on a podcast. You know, it's, you're there. They can see you. They can not just hear you, but they can see you. And if you're not authentic, they will tune out. They will choose not to watch it. They might watch it the first time or the second time, but they very surely tune you out and they won't come back. So authenticity is very important, especially in video.
The aha in there is that everybody tells us to be authentic. And the aha in there is, it's only after many hours of practicing it does your authenticity come out. That was my aha. Because again, I sat down the very first day I did the podcast. It was the real me. This is me. If somebody said, were you authentic today? I'd be like, sure was. But I saw
that was me. Yeah.
25 podcasts later, then I was like, oh, there's LuAnn. That's her. And that's the message. It's your message is practice, just get over yourself. And what I'm doing is I'm confirming your message. And I'm saying from experience, you can intend to be authentic from the first video you do, but it will be the 10th or 12th or 13th that you'll be like, oh yes, snap. That's me.
That's nice. Awesome. Well, I love that wisdom. And I have a No Fear Video Facebook group. I'm going to share this in there because that is awesome wisdom. That authenticity, even though we strive for that, might not come right away. And it will take that practice to get there, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a video or whether it's writing a blog post. The hardest part in my job always when I work with a new client is finding that social media voice. Finding that authenticity voice. And that always takes time. My clients will say, well, how long will it take? I'm like, well, I don't know, because I don't know how people are going to react to it. I know what you sound like in real life, but to actually put that on the Facebook page in a written word might not sound the same right away. I might not grasp it right away, but I can tell by analytics which things work well. And I'm going to sound more and more like what you want your company to sound like. So yeah, it takes time. That's awesome. I love that. Thank you for that wisdom and sharing that real life experience that you had. So do you have anything for me to do? I'm kind of scared now that I offered that.
Can you do a warrior pose in yoga? Are you a yoga practitioner?
I am not. I should be. Oh my gosh. I would die. Oh, I could tell you a funny story about that. I was going to start yoga in 2017. So on January 1st, I put on YouTube, I have a really big computer screen to the side here, and I put on a 15-minute yoga video. And I thought it was going to die. I did 15 minutes of yoga. I am a runner. I've run marathons, and 15 minutes of yoga had me nauseous on the floor. It was like, what the heck?
I am shocked. I cannot believe you're a marathon runner that doesn't compliment it with yoga. Doreen, you have to your body.
I know I should be. I did start strength training for the first time in 10 years. Okay. So I am doing push-ups and those kind of things, okay. But I know I need to do that. So I can't, I can whistle. Okay, I don't know if that would be a good, I don't know if I can, if I'm laughing. Tell me a tune and I'll whistle it. How about that?
How about, oh my God, I'm the worst at naming that tune. How about, oh my God, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
All right, I have to not laugh because the whistling part, I can't whistle if I'm laughing.
The daughter that's 2 years old, the first song that comes to my mind is a nursery song.
That's funny. All right, let me try. That was pretty good. I'm going to practice a yoga pose. So if you ever come back, I'm going to share you. I'll send you a video of a yoga pose. I seriously, like I said, that was my goal, and I need to. My daughter's a runner too, and we've talked about doing yoga. It's, got to put it on your schedule.
You're young now. You don't understand how much you're going to need it. I've been running for 40 years, and I've been doing yoga about 10. You've got to do it.
Okay, well, that's it. Maybe this will be it. I'll let you know when I start. Okay, awesome. Okay. Hey, LuAnn, it's been so fun having you on my show. I hope this video came out okay and that people can see it. If there is any issues with it, I'm just going to invite you right back and we'll do it again. But it's
everybody that you are sharing all your awesome wisdom on my podcast today, because you really killed it on the podcast. So make sure, that's another place for everybody to just get all of the information and tips that you share with everybody. You really are, something else. I appreciate you, and I value what you shared with us.
Sure. Well, we're going to share your podcast and the one that I'm on, and all the information and links below, so people can go and listen to them. Thank you so much for your time today, LuAnn. And I am sorry for the technical difficulties we had on Facebook, even though it's not my fault or your fault. This was plan C and we did it. So thank you. High five.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.